We're going to be talking about the Bengals this week, specifically the Bengals D. Now, I know a lot of people will be going back to that highlight film, the flip in the end zone, but you know what? That's not what this is about. We're going to talk about that defense because we mentioned, Kerry, you talk about efficiency. This Bengals defense is playing out of their minds right now. That D-line is insane.
I was just looking at the sack numbers for that defensive line. I mean, every guy has 5, 6, 8 sacks up and down that defensive front. Unheard of in this day and age where so often your pressure comes from outside linebackers, from corner blitzes, safety blitzes. Really impressive. And of course, Marv Lewis has done it before. I mean, his claim to fame is he was the defensive coordinator of the 2000 Ravens, the stingiest defense of the live ball era. That's from 1978 to the present. We call it at Cold Hard Football Facts the live ball era because the rule changes open up the game. And that was the best defense since then. In the era of modern offense, they gave up 10.3 points per game. So that's obviously Lewis's cred. His street cred was built there. And he said, when they've had decent play quarterback, they've put together some pretty good teams. And right now, Andy Dalton has had a great rookie season. Paired with a good, right now, it's not a great defense, number 8 and number 9 in scoring defense, but it's good enough if you have a efficient play quarterback to do some damage in the postseason.
Well, you mentioned that because I looked at a lot of their numbers, and it seems like a lot of their stats are inside the top 10. They have, a couple 8 or 9s. They've got a couple 6s in there, but they seem to be that team that they just frustrate a lot of other teams out there because of that defensive front, because of the sacks. And
the sacks have been incredible, like we said, from the interior defensive line have been impressive. I'll look at some numbers right now. Looking at our game comparison, Ravens versus Bengals, they get a Cold Hard Football Facts Insider. Defensive hog index, our measure of the best defensive fronts in football. Number 6, it's a pretty good defensive line. Number 4 in run defense, they only allow 3.7 yards per attempt on the ground. And by the way, a huge indicator. Number 5 in passing yards per attempt against them. This is always a critical indicator. You know who's consistently good at this? The Pittsburgh Steelers. Dick LeBeau uses this stat that we use, passing yards per attempt against, as a way to rate his own defenses. I did a remote before the Super Bowl last year with Deshae Townsend, the former Steelers defensive back, and we're going over these numbers. He goes, that's what Dick LeBeau uses. And that's what we use to measure our team, and right now, to measure each team. And right now the Bengals are really good. They give up very scant few yards through the air every time an opposing quarterback drops back.
So when we're looking at these stats, because I know you always say that how it indicates what's going to happen inside the game or what happens with this team. Usually you look at it, and you look at these numbers as far as defensively. You look at who's inside the top 10, the top 5, if you will. There's a lot of teams that, basically they've already got the playoffs locked up. How important is this statistic?
Yeah, well, the one problem in this game coming up against Baltimore is Baltimore is that much better than Cincinnati.
There you go.
Number 1 on our defensive hog index. They're a defensive hog dynamo. Obviously, that's their claim to fame of the Ravens is that defense. And this year, it's been no exception. Talking about passing yards per attempt against the Bengals are 5th, but the Ravens are 3rd, so they're really stout there too. The one big difference with these teams and why I don't want to call Cincinnati a pretender. It's been a great season for them, a great year of progress, and I think the future's bright when you have a good young quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely.
We look at something called quality standings. How you do against teams with winning records. The Ravens this year 6-1. They have 6 wins against teams with winning records. The Bengals 1-6. They've only beat one team all year with winning records. They've benefited from a soft schedule. There's no other way to put it. I don't know if they're built for the long haul in the playoffs, but again, a nice year of progress